the things that Stephen mentioned now was Darfur, we got to help. How did Darfur come about? As a matter of fact, if you go back to 1991 until today, there have been 15 African civil wars and insurrections. And what are they all about if it's not about territory and property rights? I mean, think about it. It is essentially about tribes fighting over defined pieces of territory. Do you remember that film, another excellent film about Lawrence of Arabia? Peter O'Toole sitting there and he sees Omar Sharif coming in from the distance, shimmering, and then it becomes clear it's a man on a camel. And then he shoots the guy that's next to him and he said, "You shot him." And he said, "Yeah, he was drinking my water. You're my guest." That's where it all begins. So because you have emphasized everything else except what makes you great, which is your rule of law, don't forget how you were assassinating each other all throughout the 18th and 19th century. How did you get over it? Is there something Anglo-Saxon about you that makes you do it over it? Or is it the fact that after the gold rush, is it that after the fact of the conquest of the West, you actually managed to get a social contract with clear definitions of how property was established, and you exchanged it. And that was done by both your left and your right. And all I'm saying is that I don't want to get dragged into this argument about neoliberal and the other ones. I admire what you did on both your left and your right, which you've been able to do so well inside your country. And when going to other countries, you fight because it gives you a guilt sense regarding your own indigenous people, where you haven't been able to sort out the conflicts between sovereignty and property. When you do, you'll also be able to sort out Africa. Fights and wars in Africa are about territory. There is a problem. There is a problem with the word property rights. I mean, it's all there, property rights advocate. We've tried different things, legal empowerment, whatever you want, but there is this thing. And then you say property rights, everybody thinks, my God, it's Ronald Reagan. Property rights is simply the structure of law about who owns what so we can live in peace, and out of property we can make capital so that we don't need you anymore.
So, Paul, I'm going to ask you to respond, but also if you conclude your answer, just because I know you wrote about it in your book, The Bottom Billion, why you think that the China-India model isn't necessarily open to a lot of African countries, because I think that's also a question on our audience members' minds.
Yeah, and China and India share two characteristics which the Bottom Billion don't have. One is they're both huge, and big societies tend to be better governed. We'd like to think small is cozy, but actually small is personalized power and a lot of corruption. So big India, big China, power has to be institutionalized, and that helps. The other thing is that neither China nor India are rich in natural resources, and natural resources tend to produce a lot of misgovernance. And these are the features that are at the heart of the problem of the Bottom Billion, rather than aid.